Goodbye, YOLO. Hello, YONO. A journey with grit toward a healthier future. It wasn't until the day I collapsed in a cafe that I finally realized something important. I wasn't living the life I truly wanted. I had been draining my paycheck just to keep up appearances, trying to live like everyone else. But in between rotting vegetables and abandoned hobby gear, I found something that completely changed my life. This is the story of how I moved from YOLO to YONO, discovered grit, and learned how to find both financial and emotional peace. From YOLO to YONO, redefining true happiness. 1. The day I collapsed. Why I fell in the race for happiness. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? I used to grab my phone and check my credit card app, anxiously wondering how much I owed or whether my interest-free installment plan had ended. I'd sigh in the dim light of my room, staring at the screen even before pulling back the curtains. You've probably heard of YOLO. You only live once. I bought into that mindset completely. I splurged on designer bags, weekend trips with friends, and fancy drinks just for the perfect photo. While my bank account emptied, my social media feed grew more glamorous. I worked overtime on weekdays and freelanced on weekends just to keep up. Then one Sunday at a cafe, I suddenly felt dizzy, blacked out, and passed out. Later, I learned it was a result of burnout and autonomic nervous system dysfunction from overwork and stress. Lying in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I finally asked myself, what am I doing? Is this the life I want? According to a 2024 report from McKinsey Global Institute, 68% of millennials and Gen Z have experienced burnout, and half of those cases were directly linked to consumer behavior. I was one of them. We spent more to feel less alone, competing to show off our best lives while slowly falling apart inside. I wasn't living for me. I was just trying to keep up with others. So burnout wasn't a surprise. It was inevitable. What about you? Are you showing off your best life online while silently battling your bank balance? If so, maybe it's time to stop and ask, what do I really want from this one life? 2. Rotting vegetables and leaky wallets. After a week in the hospital, I returned home and opened my fridge, only to find wilted spinach and mushy tomatoes. Just days earlier, I had bought them during a health kick. But the trash bin was overflowing with food delivery containers. I was too tired after work to cook, and with food just a tap away, I kept ordering in. But the sight of those rotting vegetables hit me hard. I had claimed to want a healthier life, yet my daily choices said otherwise. When I added up the costs, I was shocked. Over 700,000 Korean wons, $530 per month on delivery food, and at least 150,000 Korean wons, $115 of groceries wasted. That's 850,000 Korean wons, $6.45, gone each month, without a second thought. So I made a decision. Delete the delivery apps and survive a week on just what was in the fridge. It was awkward at first, but I started with simple meals, fried eggs, sautéed spinach, tomato pasta. Cooking became a form of stress relief. My mother used to say, "Don't reach for a tree you can't climb." I finally understood what she meant. I was sacrificing my health and security to keep up with a lifestyle that wasn't even mine. 1 month later, I had lost 3 kilograms, my skin improved, and most importantly, I felt different. That quiet sense of accomplishment from simple home-cooked meals became my new joy. And my savings started to grow. That was the turning point from YOLO to YONO. You only need one. It wasn't about strict frugality. It was about intentional living, investing time and money in what truly matters. So, what's hiding in your fridge? Could those forgotten ingredients be a mirror of the things in life you've been wasting without realizing? 3. 8,000 abandoned hobbies and one true passion, discovering grit. A corner of my room was stacked with remnants of failed hobbies, a pricey swimsuit from a 3-month swimming stint, a tennis racket used only once, a guitar that gathered dust after a month of lessons. All trophies of a YOLO life, trying everything, committing to nothing. Then I stumbled upon Angela Duckworth's book, Grit. She argued that success isn't about talent, it's about perseverance and passion for long-term goals. That hit me hard. I had been doing the exact opposite, quitting whenever things got hard. So I asked myself, what do I really love? What makes time fly when I do it? The answer was simple: writing. Since middle school, I'd written diaries and dabbled in stories. But I'd ignored that inner voice in my chase for someone else's life. Inspired, I started writing 30 minutes every morning. It was tough. I didn't know what to write, and most of it felt terrible. But I kept going, driven by the idea of grit. After 3 months, one of my essays won a small writing contest. The prize wasn't big, but the validation was priceless. More importantly, I felt connected to myself again. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called this flow: when you're so immersed in something you lose track of time. That's when we feel most alive. I had found my flow in writing. Try different things, yes. But when you find something you love, stick with it, at least long enough to know if it truly fits you. Passion takes time to prove itself. 4. Living on my salary. YOLO and real-world economics. Do you know the feeling of waiting desperately for payday, only to watch your salary vanish into bills and rent within 24 hours? That was my life too. Until the idea of YONO started echoing in my head. You only need one. Not just a budgeting tip, but a philosophy of living simply and wisely. So I started the 30-day YONO challenge. The rule was simple: buy only what's truly necessary. But living it? Way harder than I thought. The first week, I skipped lunch outings and brought a homemade meal to work. Awkward at first, but I soon found peace eating alone in a nearby park. Then, at a shopping mall, I passed by a beautiful dress and asked myself, do I need this or just want it? The answer was clear. After a month, I had 470,000 Korean wons, $3.55, left in my account, something that had never happened before. But the bigger change was internal. With less shopping came less clutter. With fewer choices, I felt less stress. I started to find joy in simpler experiences: fresh air in the park, cooking with friends at home. A Stanford happiness study found that experiential spending, on time and memory, not things, brings deeper, longer-lasting happiness. I began spending better, not less. Now, I still buy one good book each month, even if it's pricey. But I've cut out mindless spending. That shift changed everything. Ask yourself, what was your best purchase last month? And your most regrettable? Chances are, the regrets were impulsive. Learning the difference between need and want is tough, but life-changing. 5. The day I let go. Finding balance between YONO and grit. As I moved from YOLO to YONO and embraced grit, I discovered something vital: balance. Too much YONO becomes stinginess. Too much grit, and you burn out again. I went through a phase of extreme minimalism, throwing out over half of my belongings. At first, it felt freeing. But soon I realized I had discarded some things I still needed, and ended up spending more to replace them. That wasn't smart living, it was just overcorrection. I also dove so deep into writing that I neglected important relationships. Once again, I learned that even passion must be balanced. Henry David Thoreau once said, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone." To me, that's what YONO and grit are about: letting go of what doesn't matter and focusing deeply on what does. Today, I practice selective YONO and selective grit. I spend little on clothes or accessories, but invest heavily in health. I write daily, but I also make time for family and friends. You might be wondering the same things. How do I spend wisely? How do I stay passionate without burning out? There's no single answer. But the key is to keep asking yourself what truly matters. That reflection leads to better choices. In the end, life is about balancing YOLO. You only live once with YODO. You only die once. We should enjoy the present, but live in a way that we won't regret when the end comes. And in that journey, YONO and grit are the compass that can guide us home. So, what's your compass?